Hi, Rodica. Welcome to the Impact Revolution channel. Thank you so much for coming. How are you doing?
Hi, Yoshi. Very well. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I think it's
Ah,
great to
no.
be associated with anything that is called Impact Revolution.
Great. All right. Thank you. So I wanted to start, with a couple of personal questions so people can know you a bit better, Rodica. And then later we can go to the more interview kind of questions. That okay with you?
Sure,
All right.
absolutely.
Okay, great. So, yeah, well, I'm curious now about the impact thing that you have mentioned. So, why are you want to create an impact, or why do you feel, connected with this kind of work?
I've always been concerned. Maybe that's not the right word, but I always wanted to have an impact through any kind of work that I undertook in
Okay.
all the phases of my career, because before being an entrepreneur I used to be an employee, but
Uh-huh.
in everything I did I looked for as greater impact as possible,
Uh-huh.
because I mean I think after all, why are we here? We are all here for a reason, and
Uh-huh.
obviously the bigger the reason you choose to be here for, the
Uh,
better you feel like you accomplished whatever you were born to accomplish. So I think life is meaningful, and I think everybody has a meaning and has a
uh-huh.
purpose. Whether they find it or not, that's a different issue. But
Uh-huh.
I suppose that most people tend to look for it. And for me,
Definitely. Mhm.
my purpose, my quest for purpose was always in relation to the kind of impact that I can have.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it wasn't necessarily a particular type of impact.
Uh-huh.
I'm not dedicated to one single cause, but rather I've always tried to look around, see where there were problems that I was or thought I was uh, fit enough to contribute to solving.
Okay. Great.
Matching these two things, this is how I ended up doing various things in my life.
Okay, great. So, in relation with that, Rodica, what is your why, or what are your different purposes, or your different ventures that you may have taken so far?
If you're asking me about my business, are you asking about the business or the whole life and career and everything?
Yeah, well, related to what you just described about the purpose, about the meaning, yeah, about creating impact, like what is your top things? Or because you say that you may have more than one thing. So, if I understood well, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to know what are those main things
Okay.
that you want to contribute. Yeah.
Right. So, well, I worked a lot. About 10 years ago, I started to work on creating a network and bringing on the Romanian market the concept of social responsibility. It was
Okay.
something really not familiar in the common language of people in this market.
Mm-hmm.
Even for companies, the concept of corporate social responsibility was a concept that was only known in large corporations.
Mm.
So smaller enterprises had no idea what that meant or what it was for. Nobody cared. People didn't know that there was something like that. So we created, me and my colleagues, the team I created, we created a huge network.
Uh-huh.
We developed a learning program that was actually accredited by the government to qualify people to manage social responsibilities in various types of organizations. We taught a lot of people what social responsibility was about, and that was one of the first large projects that I created
Uh-huh.
through with the help of Junior Chamber International, an NGO that is an international NGO which was present in Romania at the time. I was president in Romania, so it was easy for me to embark the whole organization in this endeavor. And we had 8 regional centers in the country
Uh-huh.
where we delivered a lot of courses, lectures, materials,
Uh-huh.
articles, case studies. It took us 3 years. But
Uh-huh.
after 3 years, I'm happy to say that many people, of those more than 200, I think, that we trained, many people are still giving us a phone call every once in a while telling us we changed their lives.
All
because
right, Ray. Good.
yes, because they
Congratulations.
bought into it so deeply, so quickly. They loved so much. They embraced the concept, and they started to consider reshaping their life and their career around social, around objectives that had a more social orientation, or
Okay.
orientation towards a social impact. So that was one adventure. It was an adventure. It was very difficult, and it
Uh-huh.
was hard to maintain. But and slowly we figured out that while we met while we met the Romanian entrepreneurs at the time, and we
Mm-hmm.
started to understand their mentality, we
Mm-hmm.
figured out that the small entrepreneurs in Romania were so far away from what was going on globally. They were so untrained, unprepared, not understanding what was going on. Everything was being done by the year. So the next purpose was to start generating
Uh-huh.
uh, an entrepreneurial ecosystem, contributing to generating an entrepreneurial ecosystem. We couldn't do it alone, but we were me and my teams were part of the puzzle, if you want. So we contributed
Uh-huh.
quite a lot. We created a co-working space and a business hub, an
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurs hub. We managed to bring in several organizations, universities, chambers of commerces to join us. We developed regional centers in other cities because Bucharest was doing quite well compared to the rest of the country.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, I always looked for the bigger impact.
Uh-huh. I can see, yeah, no, you're doing
we
really
went,
great.
yeah, we went as
Okay.
wide as we could. And then we started to train young entrepreneurs. Well,
Uh-huh.
young. By young, I don't mean the age. I mean
Okay.
young in terms of experience, right?
Sure. Okay.
We also trained people 35 plus or even 40 plus to
Uh-huh.
start their own businesses. But of course,
Sure.
most people were under 30,
Uh-huh.
and we funded with help from European funds. We funded more than 250 entrepreneurs
Oh, that's
with a
cool.
lot of money in total. So it
Uh-huh.
was tens of millions that
Okay.
we managed to put on the market. And I'm happy to say that most of them are still alive and kicking. We're very proud of those businesses. If like,
Congratulations.
yeah,
I'm curious, Rodica, if I may ask you, what makes you like you say you start 10 years ago. So what were you doing before 10 years ago? And what made you go to start trying to make people more aware of social responsibility, entrepreneurship, skills and business skills?
I used to work for the government for almost 10 years.
Okay.
With mostly, or in the second part of my activity, I mostly worked on EU affairs, transposing, negotiating, and transposing European legislation in Brussels.
Okay.
And then back home, yeah, creating national legislation that would fit the European legislation and standards.
Okay.
And while doing this, I also created there networks of people in different ministries that had a wider vision and that could understand what the single market was. My main area of concern was the single market
Okay.
and the free movement of services and professionals. So I tried to create a network of people from various institutions that had a wider vision and could understand the meaning of free circulation, of freedom, free movement within Europe.
Interesting.
And because the problem is, and I think it still is in Europe, a big issue. People
Uh-huh.
are still afraid of the free movement of people and
Mm,
services and goods. Everybody feels, to a certain extent, smaller or bigger, a little bit threatened by the
sure.
competition from other countries. So we are
Uh-huh.
a big union. We all pretend we're friends, but the
Well,
truth
Brexit is
is,
a good example, right?
yes,
Yeah, sure.
and the mentality and the attitude in Europe is still far from what the fathers of Europe would have wanted
Mm.
it to be, right?
Sure.
Because we still see each other, we still see ourselves first as Spanish, Italian,
Nation, a
Romanian,
small
or
nation
whatever,
than
and only secondarily as European. But the
mm,
truth is, historically, we are much more European than, well, in whatever European means. But if
uh-huh,
we are to look back in history, and if we define Europe as a combination of ancient Greek and ancient Rome and a little bit and Christianity, because this is
uh-huh,
what Europe really is about, then
uh-huh.
we are all much more European than we are Spanish, Italian, or French, or Romanian,
Romania, yeah.
because these are all younger concepts, right? All
That's
these
right.
nations are very young, really.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, but there's still a lot of work here. So what happened, to come back to the government experience, what
Mm-hmm.
happened was that while creating all this network and while trying to put together people that understood things in a wider, with a wider perspective, um, what happened was that the
Mm-hmm.
reluctance to change and the lack of interest for, actually, the lack of understanding of the meaning of what a public servant is, the
Mm,
purpose, the
mm,
understanding of the purpose, was what demotivated me, because people forgot or never understood that being a public servant and working in a public institution actually means trying to do your best with the best of your abilities to serve the citizens. In
uh-huh.
our case, while working for the single market legislation, the purpose was to serve entrepreneurs and
Mm,
their capacity and ability and freedom to sell their goods and their services all over Europe. And for that, you needed a simpler legislation, simpler procedures, easy to go,
uh-huh.
cheaper to get on the market, because the
Less
barrier
bureaucracy
to,
and all that. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Sure.
exactly,
Uh-huh.
less bureaucracy.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
I took a large fight for about 3 years. We changed
Mm.
about 80 pieces of legislation, but the changes were small compared to what they should have been. And
Well,
and
I
at
guess all these
the
governmental changes they are very challenging, and they probably you face a
Yeah,
lot of resistance, right? Mm.
exactly, a lot of resistance. And in the
Uh-huh.
end, I figured out, because also in a public institution you are very limited, you don't have much freedom of movement, right? You have a lot of
Sure.
you have a
Sure.
hierarchy that you have
Hierarchy.
to,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
And I figured out that I would probably have more impact with my knowledge and my abilities, would be, better put to use in a private sector, where I
Sure.
could do things the way I thought that they should be done.
Uh-huh.
And this is how I turned
Okay,
around
great.
and
Definitely,
went
that
for.
makes a lot of sense now. I never would have imagined that you came from the public sector, from the government.
Yeah, I don't look like it, do I?
No, looking at your experience and how you talk, it's like no way. But it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. That's why I was curious, because I thought, okay, nice. I thought because it was been 10 years, right? So you like, okay, what she was doing before, that made her change roads. So all right, good. What has been your biggest challenge then after getting out from this public sector and coming to the private sector and helping so many individuals?
There were several challenges. One of the biggest challenges is always
Mm-hmm.
finding the right people. And I think this is
Mm,
critical for any company, for any startup, for any
mm,
founders, to
mm, sure.
find the right people to help you move towards your goals. People that have similar beliefs, people that have similar values, people that understand what you're trying to achieve, and that they
Ah,
then who can contribute to achieving those goals, not because they're paid to do it, but
mm,
because they also believe it's worth the trouble. That's the
definitely.
kind of
Okay.
people, yeah, that's the kind of people I was searching for, and I always looked for. People that I could treat as partners, not as employees.
Mm,
People that I felt that felt like a team and worked
uh,
like a team, like a monolith almost, and all going the same direction with no doubts, related to, is this the right direction or not, with no
Sure.
doubts related to, is my colleague going to back me up if needed, is he going to be there, is he going to, that was very important. And that was one of the first, not obstacles, but the first objective that I had, to
Uh-huh.
generate a team that was fully functional and fully trustworthy and trusting each other, and
Yeah.
not questioning.
Interdependent, independently and committed and
Yeah,
accountable, right? Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
and
you were looking for.
not questioning each other or
The
me or
direction.
my
Uh-huh.
partner. Yeah.
Okay, great. Nice. All right. This is a very important thing in startups and in companies and in the culture, right? Because the culture and the same values are important in order to know the purpose and the direction, as you were discussing. How did you do that?
Well, I had to work with myself first,
Mm-hmm.
because I had to learn how to. Well, I did have some leadership skills that I had earned in the public administration. To be honest, working for the government was a very good school, because in
Sure.
the government you meet a lot of leaders. I worked with a lot of leaders,
Uh-huh.
and I learned a lot from them, because there
Sure.
the level of responsibility is very high, and
Mm,
the stake is very high often.
mm,
So if you are lucky enough to meet and to work with good leaders, not all of them are going to be good, but at least some of them. So if you
yes,
have one or two that you can learn from, it's a very good school.
definitely.
So I learned from them and tried to apply all those things in the private sector. But it was a bit of a challenge, because the way the relationships in the public sector work between
Uh,
people is different from what you have to do in the private sector. It's a bit different. The language is different. The
uh-huh.
relationship, right? So you have to adjust a little bit. You cannot just copy
Sure.
paste the
Uh-huh.
behaviors. You have to change them a little bit. So I had to undo some of the learning and
Uh-huh.
do some extra
Relearning.
learning. Yeah, but it wasn't difficult, because I was lucky. And I think
Uh-huh.
luck is also a very important factor in business and in life and in everything, and I think it's
Definitely.
underestimated. I'm
Yes.
grateful because I was lucky. And I one of my first employees was herself an entrepreneur. She had an entrepreneurial approach in
Uh-huh.
general. So it was natural for her. So soon after becoming my employee, she became my partner.
All right.
So it was easy, because my behavior was, like I said, one of a partner rather than a boss. I never liked
Uh,
the idea of
sure.
boss.
Okay.
So then, because she was trustworthy and very good at what she was doing and responsible and everything, it was easy for me to make her a partner in a couple
Uh,
of years.
okay.
And once it was two of us, well, we already had a bigger team, but the two of us being two made life much easier. And that's
Sure.
another thing that I would definitely advise all entrepreneurs to consider. It's nice to start on your own, because you feel like
Uh-huh.
you're free and nobody's going to hold you accountable, and you can do whatever. But actually, you need to feel to be accountable. In order
Uh-huh.
to perform to the best of your abilities, you need somebody that is holding you accountable,
Mm-hmm.
and that can also share with you the burden.
Mm.
Even if they only take a small part of it, the fact that you feel like you're sharing some of the burden and the responsibility of a business makes you free up a little bit your mind and
Uh-huh.
have some release. It's not like you're actually delegating that responsibility. It cannot be delegated. It's all yours, right? The whole
Uh-huh.
responsibility is yours. But it's a psychological factor that is very helpful. You have
Uh-huh.
somebody by your side.
Yeah, it's
There
like you have
are
less pressure. Yeah.
you feel like you don't have less pressure. You
Yeah,
know it
but
rationally, but somehow within
uh,
you feel a bit more calm, and you can take
release.
decisions.
Hmm.
You can take this better calculated decisions and not rush decisions, because one of the dangers in the entrepreneurship, especially at the beginning,
Uh-huh.
is the hunger. The
Uh,
hunger is what moves you on. The hunger is necessary. If you're not hungry enough, you're not going to be successful. So you want to be hungry, but you
mhm.
don't want to be as hungry as it looks, as it shows on your face,
Mm.
right? So you want to be
You want to
hungry.
hide the hungry. Yeah, okay, I get
Exactly.
your point.
Yeah. So you
Yes,
don't
yes,
have to be
definitely.
desperate. You have
Okay,
to be
yeah,
hungry,
because
but not
nobody wants to
desperate.
work with any desperate person, right?
Exactly, exactly. So that's that's
That's
something
very
that you
nice.
can achieve if you're not alone. Because
Uh,
if you're not alone, you know that if you're very, very hungry, somebody there is going to give you a piece of bread, of their bread.
uh,
So it's a metaphor, but
it's good
that's
one. It's a good one.
it's really a life lesson, and I learned it by doing, right? But now I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't have been able to talk about it then. But
Uh-huh.
now that I lived through it, it's a recipe for success. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you made me think about dating as well. It's the same thing, you know, a bit in a
Yeah,
way, you know.
exactly.
So
Well, you
it's
know that
funny.
meeting a client, now we're talking about sales a little bit. When you meet
Uh,
a client, especially at the beginning, right, it's very
uh,
difficult because you really want to get the contracts, and you don't have
uh,
a portfolio, you don't have much to show.
uh,
So it's really a lot about seduction. So
yes,
you're
yes.
right about dating.
Connecting,
The
connecting.
phenomenon,
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
phenomenon is very similar.
Uh-huh.
So you want to show your best, you want to be convincing, but at the same time, you want to go only halfway.
Uh-huh.
Because if you go too far, if you're too overwhelming, you're not going to be credible. You're not going to sell anything, right?
Uh,
You have to meet the client at the middle, in the middle, like
that,
you want to meet your date in the middle. Otherwise,
definitely.
you're going to scare them.
Yeah, you push them away. You push them away. It's a push and pull, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Okay, very
exactly.
nice. Good. Oh wow, that was beautiful. You know, thank you for sharing this. They are very valuable lessons. I was curious. You know, you talk about leadership, right? The leadership in the public sector and in the private sector, especially with entrepreneurs, is a bit different, right? Or you say that you know you have to relearn some of the skills in order to apply in the private sector, Rodica. So I was wondering if you have any examples of the key lessons learned that you learned from this transition, and what are the best leadership skills that you may can share with us in order to be effective in this in entrepreneurship and startups environment.
Well, this can be a 1 hour talk at least, but
Sure. That's why I say main.
I'm gonna try and give you a piece of my experience that could
Uh-huh.
be that
Yes.
may not be repeated by other people. Let's put it
Sure.
like that. It
That's
might be
fine.
something more particular.
Uh-huh. Great.
The way I learned to approach employees and teammates in during all these years
Uh-huh.
is by looking at them as stakeholders.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not looking at employees as, you know, that the industrial revolution
Mm-hmm.
transformed everything in means of production. And we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about resources in management, right? We talk about capital risk, financial resources, we talk about material resources, we talk about
Human
human
resources.
resources.
Yes.
I hate this concept of human resources,
Yeah.
because humans should not be considered as mere resources. Of course
Uh,
they are resources as well,
uh,
right? Because you need them to produce any kind of transformation and change.
uh,
But they are so much more than resources. And if you look at people as stakeholders, if you look at them
as a
as
partner.
as more equals in
Uh,
how they look at the company, how that what's their stake in the company, what's
mhm,
their interest, does the company contribute to their well-being, to the
mhm,
meaning of their life, enough to
mhm,
make them wake up in the morning and come to the office without hating it. That's
uh,
something that an entrepreneur should really give a lot of thought to. Because
wow.
if you work this out, if you have this kind of mentality, and if you look at each employee as a stakeholder, and when you meet them in any kind of interaction, you consider not only what you want from them, but what they might want from you and from the company overall,
Uh,
then most of the other leadership issues get solved naturally. So it's a matter
Mm,
of mindset. And I think leadership is always a matter of mindset, like
always.
most important things in this world. If you have the right
Totally.
mindset, if you have the right mindset, you don't need so many skills. I
Uh,
think that putting an accent on leadership skills is wrong also, because
mm,
when you talk about skills, you're talking about something that you learn, and you learn by repeating, and then you reproduce it. It's a
uh,
behavior, a learned behavior, but a learned behavior is a fake behavior. And if you look at the generation Z that we have to work now with, and everybody's so concerned that the generation Z is like this and like this, and it's very difficult to work with them because they're so different and they're so entitled and they
uh,
want so much and they do so little and blah blah blah. I don't like this attitude. I think this attitude comes from the fact that most of the people in my generation and even the following generation are have this expectation that if they behave nicely and they behave in a certain way, they must receive a certain response. And I don't
uh,
think that's true, because the Z generation is a generation, I think
uh-huh,
much concerned with authenticity. They will
uh,
nail you if you're fake. They will
uh-huh,
see through you if you don't mean it. And
uh-huh,
I think that this is why we have to work with our own mindset and be true to ourselves first and mean
uh,
what we say and what we do and do what we say we're going to do. Because if we manage to do this, then they will see, even when you make mistakes, even when they disagree with you, at least they will see that you're honest. They know what you're
uh-huh,
dealing with,
uh-huh,
that what they're dealing with. And then
mm,
you will know what you're dealing with also, because they will not be afraid to be honest. They're pretty
uh-huh.
blunt, from what I've noticed.
I love it. I love it, Rodica. It's very similar what we teach in our programs because it's about congruency, right? And if
Yes.
your behaviors are not same way as what you feel and what you think, people will easily identify it. And humans, we read more about the, non-verbal communication and the body, and that just the voice and the words. Very nice. Thank you so much.
Can I
I
say, can I
Yes,
say something that I really
of
loved
course.
what you said in our conversation before the interview. You said
Sure.
something about humanizing the organizations. I
Yeah,
loved
that's
it.
it. Yes.
I wish I could hear that more often, because I truly believe in this. We need
Yeah.
more humane organizations, and we should be looking at organizations, be them public or private, doesn't matter,
Uh-huh.
NGOs, companies, whatever. They all should be serving humans, not
Mm,
the other way around. It's not
that's
us that
right.
are serving the organizations. It should be the
The system.
organizations that are serving us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was reading this latest book, well, Homo Deus from Yuval Nova. I'm not really sure. He's the one who wrote the Sapiens. And he
Mm.
was saying something similar, it's like we created these systems, okay, these organizations to make a profit, but instead of them working for us, we are working for them, for these
Yes,
systems that are, imaginary, they are things that we invented just to produce stuff that's supposed to be helping us. But yeah, it's crazy.
exactly.
It's crazy. So humanizing, I think, is the next step, and that's why is the purpose of this channel as well, to redefine this kind of business mindset. So I really love what you shared today, Rodica. And before we end the interview, because we have a couple of minutes left, I wanted to know, you wanted to share anything else that we may have not covered that is important for you, that will be of value for the startups and entrepreneurs.
Uh, well, just to end in a positive note, although
Yes.
most of the interview was quite positive, um, I would like to say two things.
Uh-huh, sure.
One,
Uh-huh.
one which I think is important, and many entrepreneurs will say it, but it's not said enough.
Mm,
Failure is an ingredient of success.
mm,
You need
totally.
to fail in order to really succeed. So
Uh-huh.
people should not be afraid to fail, and they should do it as fast as possible. So
Yes.
go out there, test your product as soon as you have it. Don't waste too much time being perfect, trying to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. Go in the market, fail it, start it again, fail it again. In the end, you will succeed. So this is one thing.
Great.
And the second thing is, we are here on this planet to be happy. We're
Mm,
meant to be happy. So, whatever you do, whatever kind of business you want to start, whatever kind of NGO or organization or work you're doing, I think it's critical that you find that particular combination that makes you happy and makes happy the people around you
uh,
as much as possible. We're not going to be happy every day. Happiness is not like a continuous state. If it were continuous, we wouldn't know we were happy. We'd probably
uh-huh.
be crazy. But you want to do the best you can to be happy and in a positive state as many hours, as many minutes a day as you can, you and the people
Uh-huh.
around you. The happier
Yeah.
you are, the happier your customers are going to be, the more money you're going to get, the more easily you're going to sell, your people are going to work better. And I'm
It's
saying this as
contagious. It's contagious.
it's
Happiness.
contagious. And I'm saying
Yeah.
this after many years of being not aware of this and being not concerned with this and being not careful to this. And I paid a price for it because I was too concerned with being practical, pragmatic, doing the most that we can, no matter if we have to spend 24 hours a day working. It was a mistake. You don't have
Mm,
to work till you die. You have to
uh,
work as much as you need to be able to stay happy.
uh,
And I think this is hard to understand. It takes a few years to get to
mm,
understand this. But I just wanted to say it because if people think about it even a little bit, if they give it a little thought, people talk about work-life balance, but
mm,
that's too mechanical, work-life balance. I don't
yeah.
like it. It's too mechanical. It's like we have an Excel sheet and we make a balance, how much is work. It doesn't work like this. You just have to be
Yes.
happy because sometimes the work makes you
Gives you
happy.
happiness. That's
So you
right.
don't
Brings you
have to put
happiness.
it in exactly.
Fulfillment.
You don't have to
Uh-huh.
put it on different sides of the balance because sometimes the work might contribute to your happiness, and sometimes family might give you trouble.
Uh-huh.
So, or your personal life. But you just have to try to be happy, and as long as you don't forget that this is one important purpose of your life.
Uh-huh.
Your business, as long as you don't forget this, your business is going to be healthier.
Uh-huh.
Because if you're
Uh-huh.
healthy in your brain as
Yeah,
an
that's
entrepreneur,
right.
you'll create a healthy environment.
Uh-huh. I think it's all about balance, right? Between all the important things that we value in our lives, and finding that balance, is not a straight formula, as you say, and you need
Yeah.
to experiment sometimes, and sometimes you're going to be more off of the road, but it's trying to get this balance, I think. I love the way you have shared all these powerful lessons, and I think this kind of shows your intelligence emotionally. Okay, so you have probably gone through a lot of things in your life that make you aware of all these things. That actually we teach many of these things in our courses. So I was wondering, what was your turning point, Rodica? Because you mentioned something that that you say, okay, I wish I could have known this before, or I was not aware of this. What made you change the view of all these things that you have shared in the last point?
My particular turning point may not apply to everybody,
Yeah, I
but
know, sure, but it's good.
but I
Please.
think I think it does apply in many cases. My turning point was my son. When I
Ah.
became a mother, uh, life changed, and I think it's the same with men as well. When they become
Mm-hmm.
fathers, something
Yeah.
changes in their lives.
Uh-huh.
So in their there's a shift of priorities. You suddenly see time differently. Time has
Mm,
a different quality when you're a parent.
mm,
All of a sudden, an hour is not a little; it can be a lot. On the other hand, 1 hour can be less than you thought before from other perspectives. So it's a
uh,
change of perception of time, and that helped me become more disciplined with my life and with my own um, with the management of my own
mm,
resources, my personal resources. Because until then, I managed everybody else's time and abilities and everything, but I never really managed consciously and intelligently and pragmatically my own resources. I abused
mm.
myself, right? Many entrepreneurs do this. Many
Yes,
entrepreneurs abuse
I done it
themselves.
too. Uh-huh.
right? We all do it at the beginning. We all
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
for sure.
There's nothing wrong with it. I suppose it's part of the game, it's part of the experience.
Uh,
But at some point, you have to stop, and you have to stop before you reach burnout. You have to stop
mm,
before you collapse.
that's
I
right.
was lucky to have my son because I wasn't on the verge of collapsing, so I still had time to readjust.
That's where the
But there's
luck you were talking about, right? The universe, I think, is also conspiring to help us,
yes,
It's my belief. So,
absolutely.
all right, beautiful. Yes, so I think we are done. I don't know if you want to say anything else. It was a beautiful interview. Thank you so much, Rodica. So if you are okay, we can finish it off for now. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I think, well, we could continue for hours, but I'm sure
Yeah,
that people have
definitely.
other
I
things
can
to
be
do too.
about 35 minutes is okay. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And keep in touch, Rodica, yes? Because I really like it. Yes?
Absolutely. And I wish you all the best with the Impact Revolution. I hope to
Thank
see
you.
Impact revolutions all over the world.
Yes, I
And
hope so too. Rodica, and with people like you, definitely, I think we will get there eventually. I hope so.
well,
Otherwise,
I count more on the younger ones, to be honest. I think they're much more revolutionary than I could be at my age.
uh-huh.
But I see a lot of positive change in this new generation and more connectivity, more connection, sorry, with the nature, with the social problems, more awareness. Of course, not everybody's like this, but a lot of young people are aware of the tasks that they have in hand, and they
Yeah.
seem to be willing to contribute. So I
Yeah.
believe in
Yeah.
this revolution that
I
it will
think so too.
definitely take place.
Thank you,
Thank
Rodica. Thanks a lot. Yeah, we go with that then for the hope of the future then. The faith on the future. Thanks a lot, Rodica. Cheers. I'm going
thank
to
you
turn
too.
this off.